Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today is the first part of our four-part look at Joss Whedon and John Cassaday's run on the Astonishing X-Men. This went from number 1 to 24 plus a giant size. We're going to look at 1 through 6 today. And man, if superhero comics were written more like this and drawn like this, I'd be reading a lot more superhero comics. This is there's a reason why I have a lot of superhero comics in my collection. Not many from the past 20 years. And maybe I just sound like an old fart. But, yeah, and also I'm an old man, you know. Superhero comics are kind of written for younger people. But these are just so well written, so well drawn. They're funny. They're got great action, and if you're an X-Men fan from way back, they're so much like catering to the old fan in these comics. And it's almost like a love letter to the Claremont Byrne days, and even the Claremont Smith days, and that era. But let's crack these open. We got number 1 here. Very cool cover. I'm sure a lot of people just saw that and were like, yeah, I'm gonna buy this. So John Cassaday does all the covers. I'm pretty sure, for the most part, he pencils and inks every issue as well. There might be a fill-in issue later on, I can't remember. We start off with this kind of nightmarish interlude where this young girl's having this horrific nightmare. And when she wakes up, she calls Vida. And this woman runs in. And she says, I don't want the nightmares to come back. And she says, it never will, Tildy. It never will. And we see this, like, silhouette of some, we can't really tell, but maybe not quite human, or just a weird-looking guy watching them through a two-way glass, or one-way glass. And now we start the main story, Gifted. We see Kitty Pryde returning to the X Mansion in Westchester, New York. And this is done so well. I don't know how long Kitty Pryde has been gone. I haven't read X-Men in years. I picked these up just because the John Cassaday was so beautiful. I wasn't even a big fan of Joss Whedon. I didn't watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Serenity. I liked Dr. Horrible. Though, to be honest, I think I saw that after I read these. But, I don't know, maybe I read a good review of them. But suffice to say, as soon as I started reading it, these first few pages, I was hooked. And I was like, wow, this is just great stuff. I love the sequence where she's seeing her old memories. She sees herself leaving, all those years ago, saying goodbye to Professor Xavier. If you notice, these are slightly colored differently, so her memory visions are like more muted colors. She phases into the mansion, and that's the famous Paul Smith cover. John Cassaday even duplicates the art almost perfectly. It looks like Paul Smith. This is a famous cover where she's saying that she kind of quits the X-Men. Now she's like a woman, she joined the X-Men when she was 13. She sees her, like, this was kind of weird in the X-Men. She was like 13 or 14, and she was always flirting with this, like, 18-year-old Russian guy, Peter, Colossus. And that was a famous scene from the X-Men. They even had a relationship, I think, eventually, even though she was definitely not of age. But it was a different time. Great expressions. John Cassaday's just a wonderful artist, capturing human emotion, And I guess she's late, and she phases through the wall, and this auditorium presentation has already started without her. Right off the bat, we see, like, Joss Whedon, the same kind of humor he brought to the Avengers movie, which is why that's probably one of the better Marvel movies. I love this, where, the White Queen is now kind of leading the X-Men with Scott Summers. I guess Professor Xavier's AWOL. Once again, I don't know why. I don't know X-Men history that well. But she announces to the kids, this children is Kitty Pryde, who apparently feels the need to make a grand entrance. To which Kitty replies, I'm sorry, I was busy remembering to put on all my clothes. That's a good line, because White Queen always dresses like a prostitute. A very high-class one, but... So, she says hi to the Beast and Scott, Cyclops, and they have some great little repartee. And Emma, I'll call her Emma instead of the White Queen. It sounds kind of ridiculous. She's addressing the students, saying violence will never be tolerated. And then all of a sudden, the Sentinels ripping through the ceiling of the auditorium. It's just a hologram. The Danger Room's simulation. She didn't even tell her fellow X-Men, so they're all battle ready. She did it as a demonstration to say basically that these humans will always hate us. We can prove useful to them. We must give them respect, compliance, and understanding, but we must never, trust them. They've proven once, time and again, that they hate us mutants. So this is something new to me too. Apparently Scott Summers and Emma are a couple now. I guess Jean died again? Sorry about my ignorance, guys. I haven't read many Marvel comics in so long. So, but apparently they're this total couple, and they really are in love. Emma really seems to be good now. The Emma Frost I knew was pure evil. But I guess just like Magneto was reformed by Charles, I guess that happened. They really actually have this great kind of loving, kind of sexy, loving relationship. And Emma really seems to love Scott. And so they wake up the next morning and Wolverine's there. And this is another great line. He says, which stage of grieving is this? Denial? Cyclops blasts him. And they start fighting on the lawn. Another great line here where Emma's watching these two guys fight. If you guys don't know X-Men history, Logan, Wolverine, always loved Jean Grey. He was always trying to get her to leave Scott. Well, in subtle ways. And Scott always loved Jean Grey. It was the love of his life until she died twice. So Emma says, superpowers, a scintillating wit, and the best body money can buy, and I still rate below a corpse. Because she knows Scott still, loves Jean, even though she's dead. So they have a meeting in the Danger Room. The Danger Room now isn't just a bunch of whirling knives and, goofy things like that. It's a full-on holodeck, like something out of Star Trek. So for some reason, it's the Hawaiian Islands, and they're giants. They're sitting on them. I just thought that was an interesting touch by, I don't know if that was John Cassaday's idea. So this is basically the premise of this new #1 X title, Astonishing X-Men. This was the first Astonishing X-Men. Scott is saying that we have to be a super team. Look at the Avengers and the Fantastic Four. People don't follow them down the street with torches and trying to kill them. So we got to play up even though it's kind of silly. Of course, Wolverine says, oh, shit, is this going to be about tights? And Scott says, well, yeah, superheroes wear superhero outfits, super costumes. We're going to have to play this part. So that's why, almost the reason why there was this new comic. Joss Whedon at least came up with a new raison d'etre for the X-Men. Of course, they're all going to still remain teachers at the school. That's the primary goal. The Beast is still, the jocular, funny guy. Am I the only one who's dying to see the outfits? And now we cut back to that woman who is taking... I'm so sorry, I can't remember her name. Let me check. I should have written this down. Vida. So, Vida is a world-class geneticist. And we see her at this kind of an auditorium. She's about to release the news of some amazing discovery. Oh, I'm sorry, her actual name is Kavita Rowe. She's Indian. Meanwhile, across town, there's some swank benefit gala, charity ball, and these terrorists attack it. And now for the rest of the comic, we're going to cut away between Kativa's speech. God, I got to check that name again. Sorry, guys. My memory's terrible. Kavita. And we keep cutting between Kavita's speech and this charity ball. These mercenaries are led by this alien guy. This is the guy we saw in that second page, his silhouette. But even more, this is kind of exciting. But the Kavita Row scene is way more intriguing. Basically, she's telling the audience, she's saying, mutants are just people with a disease. And we found the cure. So this is going to be the major subplot running through these Astonishing X-Men. There's now a cure for being a mutant. And of course, you can imagine the rifts it's going to cause in the mutant community. Meanwhile, we cut back to the X-Men getting ready to show off their new costumes and their new super team. And Wolverine says, time to make nice for the public, huh, Summers? He says, we have to do more than that, Wolverine, or Logan. We have to astonish them. So Whedon even writes in where the title comes from. This, I guess, these X-Men are trying to astonish the world. Like, be superheroes, And so that's where we leave the first issue. There's a cure for being a mutant. This charity ball is held by this guy. His name's Ord and his mercenaries. And the X-Men are on their way to kick his ass, hopefully. Okay, number 2. So, guys, I didn't mention the colorist. It's this woman named Laura Martin. And I gotta say, there's some beautiful colors in this. Look at this cover. This is such a great gradation of blue here. That is just gorgeous. Really nice stuff. I'm assuming she does the covers as well as the interiors. It's nice that they have these, in the early 2000s, they had these previously on in the X-Men. Now we see a flashback. So it turns out that little girl that we saw in the very first issue, Tildy. So she had a mutant power, and unlike most mutants, her power manifested when she was like 4. And basically her nightmares come true. They manifest. So she actually was responsible for the deaths of her own parents and a police officer who interceded. So you can imagine, like, her life has not been good. And she's one of the first mutants that Kativa has been, experimenting on. And it seems like it works. It seems like her nightmares are now gone. She's not a mutant anymore. The whole time she's giving the speech, they're watching this on a giant screen TV. The actual police footage. And man, look at this, horrifying. She's floating in the midst of this ethereal monster from her nightmares that are totally impaling her father and this cop. Great image. So the X-Men are in their little Blackbird, their jet, and they're heading to this building, the charity ball. All talking about how their strategy. I like this while these mercenaries kind of bicker and just, they're kind of chuckleheads. It's kind of weird that this alien overlord would have these morons working for him. But while they're distracted, Kitty is phasing people through the floors. The innocent people, she's taking them to safety. They don't even notice her. She keeps doing it. Every time their back is turned, she saves another person. And then the X-Men attack. So not only does Whedon and Cassaday do some great character stuff, which, that was kind of the heart of the X-Men back in the day. It was kind of a big, long soap opera. But they also had kick-ass action, especially when John Byrne would draw stuff. And Cassaday's great at it. This is a really just thrilling, kinetic stuff going on here. So they finally attack this Ord guy from, I believe it's from Rimworld. I think that's the name of his alien planet. And he is quite formidable. He basically kicks their ass. He kicks all the X-Men's ass. Rips Wolverine's guts out. Even in her diamond form, Emma can't make a dent with him. He just throws her through the floor. And right then, Lockheed the Dragon, who Kitty was just talking about, he said he was going to show up soon. Where's Lockheed? Lockheed finally shows up in the nick of time. And Lockheed is Kitty's dragon, which, that's from those old comics. And he's a cute little critter, but he's probably stronger than any X-Man. And so he totally crisps Ord's face, and he flies out of there screaming. So he saves the day. So they have a press conference. Cyclops is like, guys, here comes the hard part. This is the part we got to do from now on. We got to talk to the press. And of course, the press are asking all these stupid questions. They just saved all these people. They're like, was it the mutants who caused this? And they're just as calmly as they can answering their questions, just saying, no, you can ask the people here, the innocent people. We rescued them from this alien. And then one of the reporters says, Dr. Hank McCoy, that's the Beast. What do you think of this new mutant cure? And he says, cure? He didn't even know. None of them knew. And so they're back in the mansion, the X-Mansion, and they're all having a debate about this. Emma suggests they just kill this doctor, Kativa Rowe. She's like, because you can imagine the whole ethical, moral dilemma this, brings up. This woman is saying that being a mutant is a disease. It's like people used to say that about homosexuality, Wolverine, of course, agrees with her. Because they also think that if this cure is real, the government's just going to line up all the mutants and neuter them, basically. Because the government has proven they don't like the mutants, that they build the sentinels, So really good dialogue, this debate. It's not an easy argument. And here we find something interesting, Kitty finally kind of confronts Emma. And Emma says, I was the one who wanted you on the team. Because I knew that I want someone to, I knew I wanted someone to keep me in line, to check me. And Kitty says, well, that's all well and good, but when I first joined the X-Men, you abducted all the X-Men and tortured us. When I think of evil, you are the face of evil to me. So, in a way, I guess they both have what they want. She'll definitely be keeping an eye on Emma, which is why she wanted her back. So she says, here's the corporation that has been funding this cure, and the Beast breaks in. Really nice sequence. Once again, look at these gorgeous colors by Laura Martin. And Hank McCoy is a colleague of Kavita. So He wants to talk to her. She thinks he's there to be like either, I don't know, destroy the cure or to talk her out of it, convince her that it's wrong. And then the big shocker at the end is the beast says, I just want to know if it works. So, pretty dramatic rift developing. Look at that kick-ass cover. Man, if I was a teenager again, I'd buy 20 copies of this. We see one of the students at the X Mansion talking to Kitty Pryde. His name is Wing. He has the power of flight. And Kitty's trying to like give him a happy, sweet vision of mutantdom that, you know, we'll all stick together. And this kid just says, are you a fucking retard? So of course he gets detention. But it shows that, like, you know, a lot of these mutants have grown up hunted and feared by humans. You know, they know that the mutants are gonna divide up, and that's what happens. The next day at Benetech Laboratories, where Kavita works, there's like 2,000 mutants lined up who want the cure. Some of the students are leaving to get the cure. So, of course, everyone's just like, ah, shit. So Kavita gives Hank a version of the cure. She knows Hank's brilliant. She wants another set of eyes on it. And the other X-Men can't believe it. They're like, wait, you have the cure? Are you fucking kidding me? Ord is just as freaked out. Turns out he's in cahoots with Kavita. Sorry about that, guys. It had to be done. Oh, gross. I got snot on my comic. Well, I won't be able to CGC slab this anymore. Damn. Sorry you had to see that, everyone. I just don't want to start this video over. So, you know, Ord's from this other world. From their conversation, we realized that the only way she developed this cure is through his technology. But she's also this great woman. She's just like, you know, totally standing firm with him. He's like, nobody is to be hurt. I told you this from the beginning. She knows her worth. So he's trying to bully her, and she's just like, you know, basically back off. I will not hurt anyone. So Scott Summers goes to talk to Nick Fury, get some information on this Ord guy. We see even Nick Fury isn't very pro-mutant. Apparently, there was some X-Men story recently where Magneto fucking tried to destroy Manhattan. Even though all the other mutants stopped him and saved the day, Nick Fury's basically like, you guys are on your own. I don't know if this cure is such a bad idea. We'd all sleep easier if, you know, if it's real. So very contentious. Now we see Hank in his lab looking at this cure, and Wolverine just comes in. I don't know if he's had too many beers or something, but he says, get rid of it. And Beast's all like, no. And, you know, they start having, once again, this moral debate. Wolverine's saying, if you know, I know you have the right to do whatever you want. You're a human being / mutant. But if you're an X-Man, if you get the cure, what is that going to say to every mutant in the world? You can't do it. And Beast is all like, get the fuck out of my face. I'll do whatever I want. And it actually turns into a physical fight. And pretty savage. That's a pretty amazing panel there. That definitely satisfies you, the 14-year-old in me. I never liked this new Beast. I believe this Beast, you know, with this weird cat face, came out during the Grant Morrison run. I probably just because, you know, when I was a kid, he didn't look like that, I'm sure. So now their fights spills out into the hallways of the school. These kids are like, so the teachers spend all their time trying to kill each other here? Yeah, that's so cool. So Emma sees this. And, you know, Emma doesn't do this often because it's unethical. But she seizes their minds, makes them bow to each other, and sends them to the danger room, where she pretty much lectures them. I like how she makes the danger room look like a child's nursery. Oh, Scott is there too. So they continue this whole debate. Everyone's got his on, different sides. But then Beast, by looking at this research, he finds out something, and he's like, Kavita, you monster, you ghoul. It turns out that all of this data that led to the cure, they've got a mutant, basically captive, and they're experimenting on him. So now we see Ord. We get a little soliloquy from him. How, he fought for decades in gladiatorial pits for the right to come to Earth and stop this mutant menace. He obviously really does not like mutants. No, he really doesn't like them since Lockheed burned his face off. So now the X-Men are getting ready. They're going to fly to Benetech and see what the hell's going on. And, of course, if they find any mutants, they're going to rescue them. Back at the school for gifted mutants, we see that guy Wing talking to his best friend. I think her name is something like Hisako. And all of a sudden, Ord shows up. There's a little cliffhanger. Now we're back at the Benetech company. Kitty is descending through this, a quarter mile of steel. Apparently, there's some sub-basement. And this is the only way to access it. So Kitty's the only one who can get through. The other X-Men are checking things out, trying to find the mutant. Back at the school, Ord is saying, "Where are the X-Men?" These kids are like, "We don't know. They went off on a mission. They do this all the time." They're pretty terrified, as you can imagine. And then he says, "Oh, I will leave the X-Men a message." And he's got that cure. He's got little hypos on his gauntlet. And Hasiko? I'm probably saying it wrong. I'll get it. They'll say her name again. Hasiko says, "Wing, run for it. Get out." And now we see her power, which is kind of like Shade the Changing Man. She has armor, mental armor that can stretch. I want to see more comics of her, because I always loved that power with Shade, how we'd have those expanding fists and shit. So, she's just a kid, though, and Ord is this, took on all the X-Men. So Wing flies away. Ord flies up after him. Good, once again, guys, colors, amazing. And he injects Wing with the cure, and then he just lets him fall. He says, "Now you give the X-Men a message. That man was never meant to fly." And he lets him drop 500 yards. So now we're back in the biotech company. The majority of X-Men have found a mutant that they were experimenting on. Turns out she was already dead. She has slash wrists. But still, they're not happy with this, that they're doing experiments on mutants. Just then, Emma gets a psychic call from the school. She knows Ord is there, has attacked. But then right then, the guards come in. These super-powered, I don't know if they're super-powered, but they've got all this amazing weaponry. Now we cut away to Kitty. Kitty finally makes it through all that steel. Turns out it's an alien metal. So she's like, "What the hell was that?" And she sees these guards in front of a cell. And she opens the door to the cell. She sneaks around him. And when she does, they hear her turn around and shoot at her. She phases out so the bullets don't hurt her. And we see the bullets hitting something and ricocheting off. And it's Colossus. It's Peter. Now, guys, I don't know if this is shocking to you, but Peter was dead for like 10 years in the X-Men universe. I didn't know that either, to be honest. I wasn't sure. But, so this is some amazing, crazy stuff. I love the scene here where Kitty is just staring at Peter and he runs right through her in material form. She's still just staring in the direction that he was. And he's kicking the shit out of these guards. And she has to stop him because it looks he's going to kill them, it looks like. And when he sees her, he hugs her and he says, God, please, am I finally dead? So obviously, Peter's just been like tortured for years in this cell, a mile under the ground or whatever. So this is I guess at the time, this was probably a pretty cool cover. Like, wow, Cyclops is back. Oh, man, the colors here, love it. That blue is just incredible. So Scott is having this weird dream. I love this little panel that makes fun of the Jim Lee years. He's like telling Jean, what do you think? Do you at least like my costume? And look at this, there's like 75 pouches on him. He looks ludicrous. He's even wearing a tutu. So Scott wakes up. Now we're back at the school. Apparently, Hisako saved Wing's life. She grabbed him with her, armor arms. And the healer is making him better because her arms aren't that soft. But she saved his life. But when he wakes up, he's just bereft. Because he's like, I'm cured. He loved his powers. He loved being immune. He loved being able to fly. Now we're back. This is a really good scene if you know the history of, Kitty and Peter. Where she's just like, we have to just sit here and talk for a second. I need a minute. And kind of a reference to so many comics. See, she basically says, you have to know that if you're a clone or a robot or a ghost or an alternate universe thingy or a shapeshifter, say something that'll prove that you're not. Because I will fucking kill you if it turns out you're any of those things. Because we've seen that in comics so many times before. It's a really touching scene. Pretty nice. Peter tells a story. I guess they switched bodies. It is just a typical drama, soap opera resolution. But I like how Joss Whedon doesn't get into it too much. He's just like, yeah, that's all I need to say. The bodies were switched. I don't want to hear some overly complicated, crazy explanation. So now Kavita comes in. She sees these guards. She sees the injured X-Men. She says, I didn't want anyone to be hurt. She even starts bandaging up Scott. She really is, she's not full of crap. She really wants peace and doesn't want anyone to die. But the Beast attacks her. She says, that girl was already dead. She killed herself. I'm trying to create a world where mutants won't want to kill themselves. And the X-Men wait to the right moment and they attack these guards. Some pretty kick-ass stuff. I guess these guys had scramblers, mental scramblers on their left ear. Wolverine chops them off. that would protect them from Emma's psychic pull. So once they're off, she says you will walk straight to a hospital and remember nothing. And every time you hear the words parsley, intractable, or longitude, you will vomit uncontrollably for 48 hours. It's almost like the preacher's power in the comic book Preacher. And that's when Ord shows up. And all of a sudden, Ord's facing them off. And I forgot to point this out. Look at the X-Men. They're just like, what? And Ord thinks that they're terrified of him. We're too scared. But they're all in shock because they see Peter phase up from the floor. And Peter wallops Ord. There's some really satisfying stuff if you're an old-time fan. The little fanboy inside of me, I was just all going like, yeah, this is so rad. But this Ord guy, man, he's going toe-to-toe. But Colossus is so angry that it gives him an edge. And he pounds Ord into the floor. And that's when S.H.I.E.L.D. show up. So now we have number 6 and another really nice cover. I really hope Laura Martin stays on as colorist of all these issues. She's pretty essential to this team. We have another flashback now with Kativa and Ord. It almost looks like his style is different here. It's a little rougher. I guess to show us that it's a flashback. And now we're back to the present. And Wolverine says, diplomatic, and there's like a whole word balloon of cuss glyphs. So I don't know what he says there. Diplomatic, motherfucking, cocksucking, rutabaga humping. I mean, that's a lot of curse words. He says diplomatic immunity around those cuss words. And Nick Fury's just all like, you heard me, Tiny. So basically Nick Fury is saying, walk away. And of course the X-Men are like, fuck you. You gotta be kidding me. Do you know what they were doing to our friend Colossus here? Nick Fury doesn't seem very sympathetic at all. Here's another example of Whedon's humor. Nick Fury says, how do you even know that's the real Colossus in the first place? Emma says, I read his mind. B says, I matched his DNA. Wolverine says, I smelled him. And B says, I also did that. That's funny. So now we find out the whole thing. So this woman with green hair, she's Agent Brand. I don't know if this is a long-time Marvel thing, but she's in charge of SWORD, which is kind of like S.H.I.E.L.D., but they're called the Sentient Worlds Observation and Response Department. So S.H.I.E.L.D. deals with planet Earth. SWORD is there to keep tabs on the rest of the universe. And I guess Ord and RimWorld, they came to Earth ready to have war. And their technology is way better than ours. So they'd probably kick our ass. So basically S.H.I.E.L.D., or I should say SWORD, kind of deal with them. Basically, the reason why Ord wanted to invade Earth is so bad is because I guess they have precogniz, what do you call those type of people? Like oracles. And they saw in their future that a mutant from Earth was going to destroy their planet. So they wanted to come to Earth and neutralize the mutants. So this was almost like a compromise. So just then, these mutants break into the company. You know, these are all the mutants that want to get cured. They're like, where's the cure? I love this guy here. He's like MODOK's nephew. And, but this is the weirdest thing, guys. Tell me if I'm wrong. We see this, it's almost like Maddox, the multiple man. Is that his name? You know, someone who can split up into many parts, like Triplicate Girl. But it's little Harvey P cars. Look at them. There's all these multiple P cars, a plenitude of P cars, jumping around, causing trouble. It seems like they're just leaping around, not doing much. I don't know. You guys tell me in the comments if you agree. I think those are supposed to be little Harvey P cars. The eyebrows, the hair tufts, the frumpy clothing. So now the shit's hitting the fan. God, some of that beautiful coloring again. I'm sorry, guys. The Ord is from Break World. I think I was calling it Rim World. I don't know if that's an old Marvel thing or not, or if Joss Whedon invented that. All this dialogue is spot on. Really well done. And so then Katifa comes up and says, Ord just took off with Tildy. He grabbed Tildy and he took off in his spaceship. He's got all the samples of the cure. Not the band. And we see his weird alien spaceship take off. And they're like, oh man, it's building to vertical thrust. 10 seconds and it's gone. And then, guys, if you're an old-time X-Men fan, get ready to change your underwear. Because Colossus says, no, he doesn't get away. And Wolverine says, you feeling rested, Petey? Then I just got 2 words for you, bub. It's the fastball special from the old Claremont Bird days. I like how he doesn't even say fastball special. He doesn't need to. But, yeah, I was almost out of my chair. Just totally feeling like a 13-year-old again. And so Colossus throws him so hard, it hits the spaceship. Pretty good aim. Wolverine uses his claws to hang on. And then he breaks in. And I like this. He shoves his whole fist in Ord's mouth. He says, you bite, I'll heal. I pop, you won't. Land. So Ord has no choice. So he stops Ord. He rescues Tildy. And they cart Ord away. I assume they're going to send him back to Break World because he's got that diplomatic immunity. So, you know, the cure is not gone forever. It's sent back a few months. So there's still going to be a dilemma within this X-verse. And, you know, the Beast is kind of looking at it pessimistically. He kind of agrees that he's not going to take the cure. He realizes Wolverine was right, that he's an X-Men, and it would be a bad example, and whatever. He'll deal with shit. But Scott at least says on the bright side, we got Pete back. And outside the window, I'm sorry, I didn't finish the conversation. The Beast says, though, I might at one point. I might take the cure. I'm not saying never. And now we see a really nice moment between Kitty and Peter. This is such a nice picture of Kitty. Just for my teenage boy self, I'm like, oh, I have a crush on her. And then, guys, you know, pretty happy ending overall. Of course, it was too good to be true. The camera pulls back. Emma's in her study. She's looking out the window. She's talking to someone. And the person she's talking to says, well, this Peter returning changes the equation. Emma says, no, she is still the issue. Well, not to worry. When it starts, we deal with her first. Whoa. So, I don't know. I haven't read X-Men in years, and I forgot what happens in these issues. So, apparently, Emma hasn't totally rehabilitated, or this could be some kind of false flag to make us think that Emma has not been rehabilitated. But, either way, I can't wait to read number 7. And, we're going to do that at the next episode. So I hope you guys aren't annoyed, but I just wanted to get these out of the way. I'm tired of stringing everything along for weeks and weeks. So the next 4 days episodes, just going to look at 6 issues of the Astonishing X-Men by Whedon and Cassaday. And yeah, I hope you don't get too bored. But I'm having a great time reading these, to be honest. These are fun as hell. And I don't know, if you ever miss reading superhero comics, these are good. Get these. You take my word for it. I really are enjoying these. I'm really enjoying these. So that's it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. And I hope to see you next time here at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.